We want you to realize that anything you desire is already coming to you. Attraction is what this is all about. Attraction. There is no assertion. But you see, a really wonderful thing is happening for you. A really, really, really wonderful thing is happening for you. Such a wonderful thing is happening for you, because you are here in these bodies, but you're not here only as you, as your human self. Your inner being, your source energy is here with you, flowing to you and through you, and is a big part. We want you to hear this. We've not said this to you before, but it's time for you to know this, to understand this, and to expect good things as a result of your knowing of it. Your inner being has a point of attraction too. Your inner being has a point of attraction too. And while your inner being cannot throw something to you, your inner being cannot assert something into your experience, when you ask for it, your inner being, who is a part of you, can hold the knowing of what you're asking for in such clear awareness that your point of attraction becomes more vivid and more powerful because you have asked. Do you get that? Did you hear what we just said? So now what that means is, now that you've asked and your inner being is holding vibrational awareness of what you want, and law of attraction is responding to the attraction that your inner being has going on, now a really interesting thing is happening to you, because you're summoning and your inner being is summoning too, but you have your own free will of your own free thoughts, and you can think thoughts that block that if you choose to. Now, most of you would say, I would never do that, even though you do it every day, because every subject is really two subjects. And sometimes you think you're thinking about the money that you desire when you're focused upon not enough of it. Or you think about the lover that you are summoning, but you are focused upon the absence of that lover. Sometimes you are thinking thoughts, you, human adorable, human you. You're thinking thoughts that are vibrationally inconsistent or vibrationally resistant to what you have asked for and what is being summoned to you by that larger part of you. You understand that in a new way just now, don't you? Don't you? We can start over. So now your inner being is on the case. Now your inner being is holding vibrational accord with what you're asking for. And now your work is so simple. Your work is just to think thoughts that match the desire rather than its absence, to say words that match the desire rather than its absence, to tell the story of what you are creating rather than the story of the reason of why you are creating it. As you stand in justification of why you need that, you block it. And every time you block it, you ask for it in a stronger way. So the point of attraction of your inner being summons energy to it more, but if you block it, you feel worse and worse, and a sort of tension sets up within you that you describe as negative emotion. Negative emotion is your clue or your key that you are doing what we just described, because it is always true. When you ask, it is always given. When you ask, it is always given. The question that we want you to discover the answer to in the days that we are together is that when you ask and it is given, what are you doing about it? Are you receiving it, or are you blocking it with your awareness of the current reality that doesn't contain it? That's what trips you up the most, you know. You are focused upon what you think is what is. So if you ask for something that you think isn't, and your awareness is that it isn't rather than it is, as you focus upon the isn't-ness of what we know as the isness, then you block it. You don't let it come. And then you complain, this isn't working for me, when it is. It always is. So as a result of our time together, you'll do less of that from now on.
A question. I've been studying quantum physics and how it plays a part on our health and the cellular memory that we have in our bodies. And I love what you said today about how you were talking about the chakras, but how we have all of life inside of every cell, not just like an energy center
And the
per
thing
se.
that's important to know is that every cell is consciousness, and every consciousness of every cell is naturally one of well-being and knows it. Now, things can influence those cells. If you're worried about something for a long time, then you can be a facilitator, is the opposite word. You can be in the way of your cells receiving the influence from being. You can get in the way of that, or you can not be in the way of that. So let's talk about cellular influence. But let's not talk about cellular influence before we talk about being tuned into who you really are and allowing your cells the opportunity to be influenced by source. And that's what meditation does for you. When you quiet your mind and your thoughts are not active, then there's no active thought that is in the way of the communication between source and cells. Does that make sense to you?
Perfectly.
Oh, and that influence is pure influence. Conversations about cellular influence are actually easier for you to accept than conversations about your influence of one another, because you're not all hung up in the way cells talk to each other. Unless you've been to the doctor and you've seen some evidence of something that's wrong with your cells, then you talk smack about them.
And so there is my newest inquiry about how we actually impact each other on such a quantum level without possibly realizing it. And I'm curious about...
Well, just see yourself. Don't think about the others. Just think about yourself for the answer to come fully to you. Rather than how we influence each other, just say how I'm influenced by the population at large or by the thinkers at large. And then go back to what we were talking about earlier about preparing your environment to receive. When you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and in alignment with your source energy, that connection and that broadcast is such that you're doing the influencing. Here's a good way of looking at it. Imagine a garden hose, and the water is turned on fully, and the water is flowing through the hose and outward. Now turn it off completely and lay it in the ditch, and notice that dirty water can run back up into the hose. But as soon as you turn the hose on, there's no dirty water running back up in that hose, because the flow of the water outward is dominant. It's a similar thing. It's easy to see, isn't it? So when you take the time to meditate, and you've done it long enough that you know what it feels like when you're really tuned in, and so you're flowing, then your influence is going to be one of well-being, and the ideas that come to you are going to be those of well-being, and the timing that you are inspired to is going to be timing that helps to perpetuate that well-being. Where if you're not doing that, and you're watching a lot of television, and you're worried about this and that, and you're joining chat groups, and you're pushing against things so that you're not influenced by the well-being of your inner being, now you are more susceptible to other things like that. And that's how momentum gets going with you. Nothing can assert itself into your experience. You invite all of it. So we don't want to get this subject of influence in the wrong place. No one other than your inner being, who is you, can influence you to anything. It's law of attraction, law of attraction, law of attraction. There's no law of assertion. But your inner being is you. Your inner being is attracting you or influencing you back into the well-being that is natural to you. There's no assertion. So you don't need to worry about people in the world or ideas in the world being out there and asserting themselves into your experience. It can't happen. It defies law. But what you can do is make yourself susceptible to things you don't want by giving your attention to things that you don't want, and therefore inviting it in. Nothing comes that you don't call. Someone earlier asked about what's the trick. The trick is preparing the atmosphere around me, which means get some sleep, be nice to yourself, do things that feel good, keep the odds up. Esther's daughter Tracy, when her children, especially when they were really little, Tracy had a phrase that she offered to her mother often, and she said, I want to set them up for success for a happy day. And what she meant was, don't take them out hungry. Don't have them skip their nap and then take them out and ask them to feel good anyway. She said, I want to set them up for a successful, happy day. And that's what we're asking you to do for yourself. Set yourself up. Give yourself the best opportunity you can to feel good. And so that includes resting. It includes laughing. It certainly includes quieting your mind and allowing the influence of who you really are to dominate your atmosphere, and then watch what happens. You can't be tuned in, tapped in, turned on very long before it becomes pretty obvious to you by what begins to come into your experience that that's what you're doing. And you can't be complaining about this and complaining about that and pushing against that and pushing against that without it being pretty obvious too what's going on. But you are the singular, sole, only influencer of you. Just do it on purpose.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
Thank you.
Really good.